for those of us who can't make the call, can send it out. Anyway, so one of the tasks was called the invitee portal, and that's where you had to complete like direct deposit information, life insurance beneficiary, home of record, designation, things like that. So that is one task that needs to be completed, and I think a lot of you responded to me saying you were done with that. The more confusing bit was you were also invited to complete some different courses on Learning Space that are global courses all volunteers worldwide do related to core expectations and Office of Safety and Security. So thank you for doing those as well. The course I tried to send out yesterday was Togo specific, and it included a lot of these resources we've been talking about, the frequently asked questions, all the links to conference calls, resources for language learning, and then also where it would be the place we were going to ask you to submit your aspiration statement. So those things are not done yet. And again, when we get it fixed on our end, we will send it out again. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask in the chat box, or you can save them up for the end of this call. Can you all see the PowerPoint presentation?
Us? Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so I will just hand it over to the team in Togo and start going.
Cool.
Okay. Hello again, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about language learning, so pre-departure and during service. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, so before you come, and you can go to the next slide. Already studying French. We really recommend that you do. We have online resources that we recommend, and I think there are also some on the Learning Space. I think perhaps the same ones. So we have an interesting course from University of Texas at Austin, something from the BBC. We have this thing, French in Action, that a couple of us here at the office really enjoyed. It's like kind of an immersion television series. And then we have an app there, Memrise, which has been recommended, and Coffee Break French and Learn French by Podcast for podcasts. And go to the next slide. Okay, so for those of you who are coming in with some French, we also have a resource. It's the news, done at a slow speed, so it's really good to listen to. And then for advanced learners, we have it's like recorded documentaries in French, which are really interesting. And you can go to the next slide.
Sorry for the interruption. I think someone's mic is not muted, so we're getting a lot of background noise.
Yes.
Can everyone please double check to make sure your mic is muted? Tara, in particular. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
OK. So cela dépend de toi. It's kind of up to you how much French you can get into your system before you come to Togo. Obviously, all the resources Jordan listed are really good ways to start. But you coming here to Togo, part of our job is to help teach you French. That said, the less French you come in with, the more difficult it's going to be during your service. And the more French you come in with, the more time you can spend learning all the other important things that will be a part of your Peace Corps service. Additionally, a lot of it is up to you. Again, you'll be trained for 3 months in French or local language if you hit a certain level after a certain point. But there's also many an opportunity to do self-study. So Peace Corps gives you a lot of resources in the forms of books, but it also gives you resources in the form of language affordances. So you will be given a small amount of money, or actually a pretty large amount of money in standards over here, of close to $20 US a month that you can use for language tutoring if you should so choose. So once you get to your site and once you swear in as a volunteer, there's still resources available for you to continue improving your French. So we do encourage you to use those resources that are available. And obviously the benefits are numerous. Better integration, more work partners, and cultural understanding are just the beginning of the things that you can do. Integration in the sense that if you speak French, you can also start learning local language more quickly, which will help with your integration. This will also give you more work partners because you'll be more able to communicate with people at an earlier place, and a little bit more cultural understanding. So all of these things depend and are tied to your language level. Again, you will get taught here, so don't worry too much. But at the same time, if you want to get a head start, now's a good time.
I just want to add something. So when we're talking about language affordances, in your village, you are, and in Togo, you are in an immersed environment. You're immersed in language. But there are ways that you can choose to expose yourself more to that and use those opportunities. So, for example, in your training site, you're going to be learning language during the day, but then you're going to be around Americans a lot also. And so you can choose to talk with them in English, or you can choose to talk to them in French. That's just one example of like a language affordance that it's up to you to decide how committed you are to learning the language.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I think being in an immersive context is a linguistic affordance, but it doesn't guarantee language acquisition. So just being mindful of that and taking advantage of being in such a rich environment, and there's strategies you can do just by being immersed and listening isn't, sufficient sometimes. You really do have to put in the practice. And yes, you will be trained in French, but at the same time, it is what you make of it, just as everything is in your Peace Corps service. So that's probably one good thing to start keeping in mind. But now we're going to move on to the linguistic landscape. Togo has a very, very complex linguistic landscape. There's over 40 local languages. And dependent on where you're placed, your village may speak more French, or it may speak more local language, or there may be multiple local languages. As you can see in the picture we've included here, you have a Woba to the left, Kage to the right, and then Ebe to the bottom of the page, south of it. And locally, even though French you need it for security purposes and to communicate, and if you're working at the school, most of your teachers will be speaking French, or if you're working in the clinic, most of the staff will be speaking French, etc. Local language really is used as a vehicle to demonstrate respect. And it really is a testament to who we are as people, because we're taking the time and cultivating the humility to want to learn their language. So it's often used as a vehicle to show or to illustrate like symbolic competence. And when we talk about symbolic competence, what we're saying is learning how to greet in local language is extremely important. It's such an amazing way to integrate. Also gestures and market lingo, being able to employ local language in those settings really, really facilitate your integration. So yes, French is the main thing, but local language is really a vehicle to show respect and to basically show who we are as an organization. We're not here to indoctrinate, we're here to learn, and we want to learn your local language because it's important to us. And language is important because it's so indicative of culture.
Yeah.
You guys have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say, I think it's a Nelson Mandela quote that I really like, is if you speak to a man in a language that he understands, you speak to his head. But if you speak to a language, if you speak to a man in a language that is his own language, you speak to his heart. And so I think there's a lot of communication that happens in French, and that's good. You will talk to people and you will work with people, and that's great. But to really connect with people and to speak to the hearts of the people with whom you live, taking time to learn the language that they speak in every day, that they speak to their children, that they've known their whole lives, shows that you care not only about the information, but also about them as human beings. So that's that.
Okay, so Togolese French. Togolese French is not the same as French spoken in France. It's not like Parisian French, which tends to be really fast and fluid. It's very slow, which makes it a really, really great place to learn French.
Another linguistic affordance.
Yes, another linguistic affordance, as Jenny just said. You'll hear West African or a Togolese accent. The West African accent, I don't know. I feel like this Togolese, Cote d'Ivoire, Beninois is pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice that the informal too is used very, very often. I hardly ever use the formal vous.
Unless it's a group.
Unless it's a group, yeah. And the vocabulary is different. So like here we would say bon arrivé, not bienvenue. So that's, welcome. There are different subtle differences like that in vocabulary. I know like here we say bonne nuit, but in France you would never say bonne nuit. And we also say il faut, which means it's necessary to do something, and other countries it might be thought of as rude. So it's just there's differences there. And we're actually going to send you all a video of us on Togolese television, speaking with someone who's Togolese, and then also a girl who's from France, just to kind of give you an idea of like the way that people speak, and also how you can choose to speak. We all, I think, speak in different ways. So just to give you an idea of the differences in accents. Anything to add?
No, you said it all, my friend.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and one more thing. And next slide. When you pack, do not forget about. And next slide. Okay, so so don't forget about your professional appearance. I know we've talked about clothing and how important it is here, but we just want to remark on that again because it really is important. So here we have a picture of one of our language trainers dressed in a way that a Togolese woman would dress in a professional situation or environment. So women typically wear dresses, skirts, or nice pants, and work as well as leisure environments. The length of the skirts or dresses must go past your knee. And as far as like long leggings or yoga pants, that's something, there are volunteers that wear that, but they would only really wear it in their house. So feel free to bring it, but just know that you won't be wearing it through your pre-service training or in other professional settings. And then just like never ever any like cropped like shirts or garments, anything that would show a midriff. I guess that's probably obvious. It's the same, I think, in the US in a professional setting, but just to reiterate that. And you can go to the next slide.
So this is another one of our lovely language and cultural facilitators, Cyril, and he is wearing a pretty standard business casual to semi-formal Togolese male get-up. So you see he's sporting some nice khakis, a good pawn shirt, and then what you can see a little bit beneath the cuff of his pants are his closed-toed shoes. So I think one of the hardest things to get used to here is the fact that it is hot. And yes, shorts are like culturally acceptable in hot locations in the United States, but here it is only for boys. For school children, if you're playing sports, okay, that's fine. But in Togo, we call them le petit. In Ghana, the English equivalent is small boys, is what the society uses to term people who wear shorts. So you will be wearing long sleeves and pants. You will be wearing closed-toed shoes if you're going to more professional events. Please bring along those things. And yes, it will be hot, but yes, you will be okay, and everything will be fine.
Okay. Go to the next slide. Okay, so for both men and women, some professional situation clothing don'ts. As David just eloquently put with the shorts, no. And like I think it's common in the U.S. to wear active wear to different places. Not here. Casual sandals like flip-flops, that's also, you're not going to wear those in a work situation, or you're running your tennis shoes. Again, like bring these things, but just know that there's an appropriate place for them. Chacos are okay, that's kind of like the stereotypical Peace Corps shoe. Most people have Chacos or T-Buds. But when there are times where we'll be, especially if you're an environmental volunteer, you'll be working with dirt and with your hands, and it'll be hot, and so you will be able to wear things to accommodate that. So like blue jeans, and t-shirts, but everything just clean, and like work boots. And that's something that your trainer will tell you beforehand. If there's a day coming up that you'll be able to wear those things, they'll let you know.
Good. Next slide. So this one is a fun one for the monitoring evaluation department. Many people will bring a smartphone. I know I do. I have my iPhone. As do Jordan and Jenny. It's been crazy, actually, in our time in Togo. Like, when we came in, not none of us, but there was a small amount of us that came with unlocked smartphones. And the majority of my neighbors and friends did not have them. And by the time, even last year in August, and now, it's just blown out. And so a lot of my homologs or my counterparts now have smartphones. A lot of PCVs have smartphones. So it's becoming a part of the landscape. So with that, if you would like to bring a smartphone unlocked, be our guest. At some point during stage, we can't say we're going to get you a SIM card that fits your smartphone in the first week, but you will have a chance in the first month or two to get that done. And so then you can start using data. But the cool part about that is we are also moving some of our data collection onto a smartphone-based app called ComCare, if anybody's heard of that. And so if you would like to be a part of that pilot program where we're collecting data mobilely through mobile data collection, please bring an Android smartphone, because those are going to be the ones that are compatible with the software. Now, don't feel pressured in any way, shape, or form to bring this phone or buy this phone. If you aren't going to buy this phone, or if you don't have this phone, and the only reason you would buy it is for this experience, don't do it. If you already have an Android phone, perfect, bring that. If you're debating the options and you care a lot about data collection, then maybe think about it. But this is more just a heads up than it is a specific recommendation. And just as a final note, you can get Android phones here as well. So again, if you're not 100% sure, do not buy it. Because you will also have the opportunity to purchase that here for a very, very reasonable price. They are not anywhere close to as expensive as they are in the States. As for unlocked smartphones, I am not current with U.S. legal lingo because I haven't been there in a while.
Yeah. Okay. So I think since 2012, all smartphones.
Rebecca's got it.
Okay, Rebecca can explain. Okay.
It's an unlocked smartphone means it should work anywhere in the world. And typically the smartphones that you get when you sign up with Verizon or Sprint here in the US, they are not unlocked because they're sort of, I don't know, programmed somehow directly to the phone carrier. And so if you take it to Togo and try to put a SIM card in, it won't work because it's locked. So in order to determine if your phone is unlocked, you can take it back to your phone company provider or your service provider and check. Or, you know, if it's not unlocked, you can buy a used unlocked one online. But sometimes people talk about bringing their locked phones overseas and getting it, quote, jailbroken. And it's not always a great option because it can really mess up your software and prevent updates and stuff like that. So just be careful of that. And there are a few comments about service providers and the types of phones they provide nowadays.
Yeah, after a quick Google search, there is, back in 2015, Congress did pass a law saying that you can't force lock phones anymore. So I think what they're saying there on the left is correct. So a lot of carriers no longer lock their phones, but it's always good to double check because the last thing you want to do is show up in Togo with a locked phone and no way to unlock it from over here. So a safe thing to do is just check with your provider back in the States before you come all the way over here. And I think that makes everybody's lives easier.
Yeah,
so,
it's just that sometimes to unlock it, you have to pay off the rest of the phone. So like if you have a favorable sort of rate with your provider, they might charge you the rest of the cost of the phone to unlock it. I think that's how it works these days.
Okay.
So food for thought.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. If we could go to the next slide. Okay, this is really the last thing. If you go to the next slide. Get excited.
It's coming.
I don't know if it's only for you guys that the slides are loading slowly, but for us in the US, the slide has been up for about.
Everyone is so excited to welcome you.
On June 2nd. We're really pumped. We're waiting for you guys. We're preparing. It couldn't come soon enough for us. We're excited to meet all of you.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're looking forward to seeing you all. It's always fun to have a good class.
Anyone have any questions? Please feel free to bombard us. Hopefully that presentation was clear.
Also, the PowerPoint slides do move slowly over here in Togo, but that's how life in Togo goes. So
Yes.
Get ready to deal with technical difficulties from time to time.
Yes.
I can take this question about the legal clearances. No, Marnie, you should not be nervous that the legal clearance hasn't come through yet. It's just the way it is. It's a very involved process that, there's definitely a big handful of people in the Togo class who are awaiting clearances. But the time you're departing is the same time about 30 other Peace Corps posts are departing, so they're trying to work through clearances for thousands of people. You probably received a 8 weeks to departure legal clearance notice asking if you wanted to remain in the class, and hopefully you elected to do so. But it's very rare that people don't clear, I'd say, before 3 weeks out. So I know it's difficult, but please just be patient and it will come.
So, question, we spoke about dress length, however, I was curious if shoulders must be covered as well. That's a great question. Generally no. Even in professional settings, you could wear like a sleeveless dress. That's not to say like spaghetti straps, very much like covering your shoulder. But yeah, you can have a dress that frees your arms and is a bit cooler. I wear sleeveless dresses a lot here. Okay, did you cancel your phone services in the U.S., i.e. Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint?
Yes.
Yep. I did.
I did not. I probably should have. And I think some people do like me because I think Katie, other volunteers do this sometimes. You can put your account on hold.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it means I think you have to do it like every 9 months. And I think my phone is still being paid for, like not the same amount that it would be if I were using it, but you pay to hold on to that number. But yeah, so there are options if you want to cancel it.
Yeah, I think, it's up to you. If you want to do as Jordan did, and if you're connected to your phone number, go for it. But the two of us definitely cut that cord. Solar charging sets, what's a good brand?
Honestly, I forget the one that I used, but it was pretty good. I think it was like Goal Zero something. But honestly, I don't know. Just Google it.
Sorry.
Yeah, we have no idea.
With solar panels, you can buy some solar things here. They've had mixed reviews from volunteers. I had solar panels, and yeah, there were some problems, but it was a good decision for me. When people do come here with solar things, they usually come here with like a small solar panel that would just like charge your phone. Mm-hmm. Not usually bigger than that because you don't know whether you're going to have electricity or not.
Yeah. I actually do remember for a fact that this is answered on the FAQ that was sent out, is that there were PCVs who recommended solar stuff. So if you want to read that and check in there, I know it's in there. And also, like Jordan was saying, it's usually smaller solar stuff. I think a really good recommendation that I can make is like a small external battery pack. So one of those rechargeable batteries that you can use from time to time is going to be useful regardless of whether or not you have electricity or not. I have that thing charged 24/7, 100%, because whenever I travel, whenever I go on a long voyage, I can charge my phone with it. So even if you're not thinking about getting solar, I would recommend an external battery pack, which helps with those charging issues.
Mm-hmm. I second that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Are 3/4 sleeves okay for females in professional environment? Yes, they are.
And as we said before, sleeveless that's okay. So anything that goes beyond that, you're really golden. You're really you're sweating, but that's a really good thing. You're probably looking a lot like many of the Togolese women here who are constantly wearing 3/4 sleeves
to long sleeves. Yeah.
Just avoid the spaghetti straps.
Yeah, no spaghetti straps.
Rebecca, if you want to take the medical clearance one.
Audra, no, I don't. Well, I have no opinion about whether or not you should be worried about that. That's a conversation you have with the nurse. So if you want to consult the nurse to understand timing, she would be your best resource on it, but I really don't know.
Cool. Next question is, what type of shoes do you guys normally wear in professional settings? I have Tibas, but not sure what sort of closed-toed shoes. So I'm wearing these right now. They're a lovely brown, just regular American closed-toed shoes. I actually got just a cheap pair of just like closed-toed American shoes works. So black or brown, something that goes with your pants, and something that you would feel comfortable wearing in the United States to a formal setting, but again, don't spend as much money on it because you'll be walking around in a lot of dirt. So a lot of this is very similar to the United States, especially for men. Think about what you would wear in the States. Is it appropriate to wear a suit to this? Yes, it is. Okay, I could also wear a suit in Togo. Is it appropriate to wear a button-down shirt and slacks? I'm going to wear the same thing here in Togo. So for men, a lot of it is the exact same. Just from the Peace Corps volunteer perspective, because it is so hot, because it is so difficult to say cool, and because you are in a different place where culture is very different, you feel much more, I'd say, free to wear this other stuff, when in the reality is it's not. So wear what you would wear in the United States, just know that it's going to be an extra 40 to 50 degrees hotter in the setting.
For girls, flats, closed-toed shoes, anything closed-toed shoes, usually flats, just work fine.
Yeah, if you can find like really nice closed-toed sandals, like, or just like closed-toed shoes that are made of like natural things like leather, that tends to be best, I find.
All right.
As a food security education volunteer, should I bring work boots? If I were you, I wouldn't waste the space in your suitcase. You can buy boots here. Well, I guess you can buy rain boots here. Other work boots, there are some people that I think would wear work boots. That being said, I don't know if it's really necessary. You know, certainly they'll protect your feet, so it's not a bad idea. But I don't know many food security volunteers that do wear work boots. If you work outside and you're always wearing work boots, then you should bring your work boots. But like, if you don't usually do that, then don't bring them.
And if you're attached to a brand or whatever, then I would bring them, but they're not, All right, do you have any advice/information on public service loan forgiveness, student loans, income-based deferment plans, etc.? I think we should probably, thank you.
Well, most of that stuff you need to work on with your loan provider. You can see what you qualify for. The thing that Peace Corps will do is they will certify your service. So we can provide you a letter, and that can be done through the invitee portal, which you were just asked to visit. You can get your certification letter there, and we can also sign a letter for you at staging that you provide to your lender. And it basically just certifies that you are a volunteer and the expected dates of your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do you suggest bike shorts or anything of the sort to wear underneath dresses/skirts? I would most definitely recommend that, but obviously it's, your preference, but I definitely enjoy it.
There are a lot of, I don't, but there are a lot of volunteers who do. I have some in case I want to wear them, so I like to have the option. Togolese women wear them all the time.
Yeah.
Kinds of things will we be doing at staging? Is there anything we need to bring or wear specifically for staging? Rebecca.
Thanks. Thanks for your question, Melissa. Yeah, we will. So your registration will start at noon on the 31st, I believe it is, and that goes till 2. So registration takes about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we convene again at 2 o'clock for about 5 hours worth of sessions where we just start talking about service and kind of like mentally wrapping your head around what you can expect, the core expectations, managing safety and security, and things like that. You don't need to, to the actual sessions themselves, you just bring yourself and maybe a notebook, although we do provide a workbook for you to take notes in. But in terms of dress, it's just kind of like a business casual attire. And in fact, I believe it might be today, but probably tomorrow you'll be getting staging reporting instructions. So this will be an email telling you where it'll be held in DC, what time it'll start, and prompting you to make your travel reservations to DC for staging.
He's going rogue.
Okay.
Staging's a good time too. We had fun there. We became friends. Transit house.
At the moment, we have so we have a workstation. I don't think we have any transit houses at the moment, but we have a workstation up in Dapong, so the most northern region of the country. And then we have another workstation in Sotobua, which is just a little bit south of Sokode. And then the second to last workstation is in Atakpame and the Plateau region. And then Lome, obviously, there's a workstation here.
So
But there are no overnight stays at the moment.
yeah. So you have places to go do work with internet connections with a computer, where you can print and stuff like that. But you will be staying overnight at a hotel. But you'll get to know the hotels quite well during your time in Togo.
That's true. If you guys haven't already, I would suggest checking out our Facebook or Instagram to get a better idea of what life is like as a volunteer and also Togolese culture.
Nice.
Like us on Facebook. Follow us.
Subscribe.
Great plugin. As an education volunteer, do you recommend bringing anything specifically? I was planning on bringing a small ESL activities book. Any other recommendations? So unfortunately, none of us here were education volunteers, but Peace Corps Togo provides you with a bunch of manuals, a lot of gender activities to incorporate in the classroom. If you'd like to bring certain activities book, you are more than welcome. But if you'd like, we can also talk to an education volunteer and come up with a list of what they wish they would bring, and we can get back to you, Melissa.
We can do that.
Did any of you bring more? Oh no, is it an even split between the different volunteer types in Togo? Are there more ag, more education, etc. volunteers? Great question, Marty. There are about a third of us in each sector for the most part, but usually it always depends on the intake. But for the most part, we're divided 33% across three sectors. Yeah.
We're also encouraged to do cross-sectoral work. So you will be placed close-ish to another volunteer from hopefully both of the other two sectors. So if I'm ag, I'll be close to an ed and a health volunteer, which means we can help work on all three sectors together in our communities. Did any of you bring more than the allotted 100 pounds, more than 2 bags? My portable charger is heavy and I was planning on bringing several things such as a hammock, yoga mat, exercise band, and other things that may be heavy that aren't closed. Do not bring more than 100 pounds. Your bag allotment is your bag allotment, your pound allotment is your pound allotment. We had a good friend in our stage who had like 175 pounds worth of stuff, and so the last hour of her experience in America was ripping through all of her things and jettisoning stuff at the airport. Fortunately, there was another volunteer who only brought like one bag. Anyways, don't. You have the 100 pounds. There's 50 other people who are also coming with you, all with the 100 pounds. That is how much stuff you have, and so make your choices knowing that that is how much you get.
And it's one of those things that the airline regulates. So with our flight, you didn't have the option to pay more if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So I would say you should just bring the allotted 100 pounds. It's not easy to pack for 2 years. I'm sure you all are having a lot of things that you're thinking about bringing and not sure about bringing and what should you leave behind, but you figure it out, and most things you can buy here. If you don't, if there's something that you leave behind, you can usually buy them here. Things like a yoga mat and a hammock, yeah, that's going to be hard to find here, so I would bring that.
I will say I think most of us here probably brought way more than we should have.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's a general consensus amongst us volunteers is, obviously bring things that are sentimental, and I know it's really difficult to choose, but you can get most of the stuff here in Lomé for the most part. So.
And I also, Lacey, I do like your point of talking about like other things that aren't clothes. Like that's a good point. Is I would definitely err on the side of bringing things that aren't clothes.
Yeah.
You can get clothes here. It's the other stuff that you want in your life that you're going to want to bring. So, I brought a guitar, but that was a carry-on that I didn't get to use then. So I traded like 25 pounds of stuff because you have those 2 carry-ons and those 2 pack bags. I chose to take a guitar. So you can't take musical instruments.
Saxophone, I know, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't been in band for a while, but the heat might not do a good job, or the reed won't do a good job in this heat. I think that might be something to consider. And there's a lot of dust. I don't know, it's up to you.
Yeah.
And your discretion.
And that was something that I took into account. Jordan, did you bring a guitar as well?
I brought a guitar. I brought a very nice guitar because it's important to me. But I also brought with it a really nice case. And so my guitar has been fine with the humidity. But that being said, a lot of other people's guitars have warped and aren't of the same quality anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to bring something nice, you have to take really good care of it.
All right. Are most volunteers at site living with a host family or in a house compound of their own? Well, during your first 3 months at PST, you'll all be living with a host family who have been very well trained by Peace Corps and will feed you and take very good care of you. And then once you get to site in August or September, it really is dependent. But for the most part, I'd say we live in a compound with other families. And it's usually up to you to decide whether you want to adopt a host family and whatnot. I know I lived in a compound and I had 2 older parents that I decided to adopt as a host family.
I did not.
David lived in a compound.
I lived farther away from people, but I also had a host family. So I didn't live in the same compound, but they were my next door neighbors, so I went to their place a lot for dinner, hanging out.
I lived in a compound, and I had neighbors, but I didn't have a host family.
Alright. Do we need to keep a credit card open or a Visa card? How will we get our living stipend? So to receive your living stipend, you will open a bank account at the end of PST, if I'm not mistaken. And it's Togo's bank, and Peace Corps Togo will pay your living stipend through that. And then you'll get into your bank account, and you're going to have an ATM card, and then you can just go to the bank at your regional capital and get money out there. It's up to you if you want to keep a credit card or a Visa card open. I decided to keep a Visa card open in case I wanted to travel and just to have something to lean back on. But to be honest, I didn't really use it during my 2 years unless I was traveling. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, I kept my Visa card and didn't really see why I should close the account because I met the requirements to not have a monthly fee. But I only have used it when I've been in America, when I've gone to visit home.
Yeah.
So, not something I ever use here.
Yeah, thanks. How long does it take to receive care packages from the United States? anywhere between 2 weeks to 8 weeks to gets lost in the ether. I'd say on average probably 4 weeks.
Yeah, if the biggest advice is have your family or your friends send it through priority mail with the post office, and usually it gets into 2 weeks for the most part, but that's, very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it can be 2 to 3 weeks. Anything that you're having sent, though, just be okay with the idea that you might not get it. So don't have your family send you electronics, money, things like that are just a bad idea to send, and you may lose. So if snacks and different home things, that's great, but yeah, just don't send anything valuable ever.
No.
All right. Is biking common for volunteers? If so, roughly how much would a bike cost?
Mrs. Looney.
I don't get it.
I don't know. Depends on the volunteer. Bikes, too, also depend on the volunteer. So I know there's a volunteer in the Carrara region who likes to bike into his regional capital. So he'll bike like 25K round trip to get groceries and vegetables and stuff. It's doable. And if you want to bike, there's definitely nothing stopping you. As for how much would a bike cost?
It's 20 mil.
It's 20 mil, but
20 to 30 mil for one of the cruisers.
It's more like, from what I've seen, it's around 45,000.
Yeah.
So like,
or more, or
more or less. And
Just-
Togo,
There's
it's
no
hard
set
to find
price.
standard prices, so that's why we're all talking about this price or that price. I had a bike because I really love biking, and I biked a lot. I biked around my village, and I biked to my regional capital. I paid too much for my bike. Now that I know, I think they should be, as far as I know, around like 45,000 SEPA, which equates to around like $95.
You can get some for 30 to 35.
there is a discrepancy in pricing depending on where you are in the country
Yes.
and how good you are at bargaining. That's always an important part because I'm a terrible bargainer, so everything I pay for has a 25% tariff of me and my terrible bargaining skills. So yes, bikes are able to found. Quality of the bike will be questionable, so if you really want a nice bike and that's something you're focused on, you're going to probably have to shell out a bit more here in Lomé. But otherwise, you can find them and you can find people to work on them.
All right. This might have been addressed on a previous call, but is it culturally appropriate for a woman to wear leggings with shorts over it and a short sleeve short when workout running? Do you have other culturally appropriate workout gear recommendations? That is totally acceptable. That's usually what I do in village, wearing leggings with shorts over it and a shirt. I don't.
Yeah, I think like Jenny said, that's totally acceptable. I got like a pair of like men's basketball shorts, and so I always wore those with like a sleeveless quick dry shirt or a t-shirt. Yeah.
And for the men as well, you too have culturally appropriate workout gear. Always wear a shirt. You're never going to go running around shirtless. And shorts are actually usually down to the knees at the least. So for guys too, those are ways to stay culturally appropriate while working out.
Oh, hi, sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can't seem to write the message. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so I kind of missed the beginning of the call, so I apologize if this has already been addressed. But I was wondering about the language classes. So once we get there, are there going to be French classes and dialect classes before we head out to our communities? And how does that work?
That is a great question. Once you arrive here, you're going to be given an LPI, which is basically a language proficiency interview.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be tested in French at first. And then based on that, you'll be categorized into a certain level. And then from there, you'll start with French. If you haven't reached intermediate high, I think it's been posted on the learning space as to what the benchmarks are in terms of language. But if you haven't reached an intermediate high, you'll begin with French. And at the point you reach intermediate high during your PST, if you reach it during your PST, you'll switch to local language classes.
Yes, okay. And it's Jessica, and we, on the learning space, there is something like Jenny said to test your LPA. We want you to test your LPI before you come here, and we would like those responses by, I think, May 14th. I'll double check on that, but we do want you to go on the learning space and check your LPI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the classes are really great.
Sorry.
Go for it.
Does that mean that the French classes are mandatory?
Yes.
Yes. Unless you... Sorry?
Because I'm a native French speaker. That's why.
Okay.
So I was just curious if I could instead take dialect classes instead of going through. I mean, I know you mentioned that local French is not the same as France French, but I thought maybe if it was possible to switch directly to dialect classes.
We've had people come in with fluent French. One of them is a native speaker, and I think they did maybe, I don't know, 1 to 2 weeks of French class, and then they immediately switched to local language.
Okay.
So I think perhaps there might be a certain period of where you're doing French, but you're mainly, if you're coming in with native language, you're probably going to be doing local language for most of your PST.
Okay. That sounds good. And how do we choose the local language? Is it do we just give us one, or is it equivalent to?
Yeah, unfortunately, if you're coming in with a native tongue and it's so early enough that we don't know where you're going to be placed at site, we can't determine which local language will be suited for your site. So you'll most likely start with EVE, but then once you get your site assigned in 2 weeks after July, you'll know where your site is and what local language is being used, and then you'll start learning that local language.
And EVE is always a useful skill to have. It's the language spoken where your training sites are, but it's also the language of the majority of the South and of Lomé. So EVE, no matter where you serve in the country, if you learn a bit of it at the beginning of PST, even just with your host families, even if you come in and have to learn French, you will always get use out of EVE. So it's never a bad idea to learn a little bit of EVE from time to time.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good day, Jessica.
You too. Bye.
Okay, what are some, so we'll try to go through these quickly because I think we're running out of time, or we're out of time. What are some common IGAs, income generating activities in Togo? One would be making soap. Yes, another one would be making tofu.
Panya, so it's panya, soap making skills are mosquito repellent, certain panya, which is the traditional clothing, making tofu or making some other kind of beignets and stuff like that, of that nature.
Yeah, so beignets, making fried bread or kind of pastries.
So good.
All right, so sorry for the influx of questions. I understand we have travel days. However, I read that traveling outside the country is limited to work around local celebrations or holidays such as Ramadan. Is this true, or can we use our travel days whenever? I think when it comes to local celebrations, I think as a volunteer, it's really important to be a part of those local celebrations because, it's part of being integrated and it's also such an amazing experience. Celebrating local celebrations with your community, it really, I think, solidifies your bond with them. But I don't think there's an actual rule that says you're not allowed to travel during these local celebrations. But I think it's strongly encouraged. As a volunteer, I would strongly encourage to be a part of those local celebrations as much as you can.
Okay. Also, should we bring a bathing suit? If we are visiting the capital or traveling in Togo, is there a situation where we will need swimwear? If so, is there a particular type of swimwear we should leave at home even when not in the local community? I really think you can wear any kind of swimsuit. You're on the beach and a lot of people wear different kinds of things. Some people bring one pieces and some people bring two pieces, but it really is not something to be concerned about.
Yeah. If you're in a place that allows swimming, the swimsuit's probably not going to be an issue. And just to come back to Rebecca's point about vacation times, we can just talk a little briefly. So yes, at PCVs, you cannot take vacation during your school year. So you can only take vacation when you're not working at school. For all other PCVs, you can take vacation days when you so choose, but it does have to be approved by your community counterpart as well as your program director. And you also need to submit it at least a month beforehand. So yes, you can take the vacation days when you so choose, but you do need to go into it with a little bit of forethought, and you can't just take vacation whenever you want. You do need to get it approved by the Peace Corps and approved by your community before you go. And like Jenny was saying, it's always good to be around for these big holidays and events.
And I'm really sorry I didn't answer the first part of your question, Lacey. Yeah, I would say definitely bring a swimsuit. There are pools throughout the country, and there's a beach in the capital. So yeah, I would say definitely bring your swimsuit.
All right, Rebecca.
Okay, so yeah, we're coming to the top of the hour, so we should probably wrap it up. If people have additional questions, feel free to email togo@peacecorps.gov, and we can get those answered for you. Like I said, likely today or tomorrow, you'll be receiving staging instructions about where it'll be and how to make your travel reservations, so keep an eye out for that. And then hopefully also tomorrow you will get access to this much talked about learning space page with all these resources. So thank you for joining the call and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
See you soon.
Excited